Hello, I'm Ginny Brady from the Boardcast blog. I'm using the Pecha Kucha format to explain Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. These are two financial institutions which have gained quite a bit of notoriety in the last month. FDR's New Deal launched many agencies, including the Federal National Mortgage Association, or Fannie Mae. It was established in 1938 as a New Deal agency. But today, many people think it doesn't deserve a 70th birthday celebration. Fannie Mae began as a public agency authorized to buy mortgages. The underlying purpose was to provide more credit to the American people so that more of us could become homeowners. And at a glance, it worked. Between 1940 and 1965, the rate of homeownership increased about 45%. In fact, it was during this time, in the late 1950s, that my parents bought their first home. But the placid 50s turned into the turbulent 60s. We were waging a war in Vietnam, and as a result, the country was saddled with a lot of debt. Does that sound familiar? The Treasury Department began looking for some creative ways to get some of this debt off the books. And so, some Treasury Department accountants came up with the idea to move Fannie Mae's liabilities, in other words, the debt from the mortgages Fannie Mae was buying, off the books. How could they do this, you say? Well, by making Fannie Mae a special kind of private corporation. Meantime, in 1970, the government created another mortgage-buying, liquidity-creating agency. You guessed it, it was Freddie Mac, the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation. Now we had two private corporations that had similar missions. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were private corporations that had government origins. A recent New Yorker writer compared them to the duck-billed platypus, looking like two creatures in one. They have stockholders who expect to make a profit, but they're also government entities. They're GSEs, government-sponsored enterprises. This lets them borrow money for less, even if they're debt-heavy with mortgages. And because they're GSEs, everyone thinks that anything they owe is backed by the U.S. government. They're like the duck-billed platypus, part government enterprise and part private corporation. Some people think that this has given them the best of both worlds, since even though the Treasury Department keeps saying that investors should be careful of the risk, everyone assumes that the government will make good on their debt. So here's how it works. They buy mortgages, repackage them, sell them to investors, guarantee the loans with investors thinking they're backed by the government, and then they borrow more money at low rates to make more loans. So, what's the problem? Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are doing their job, buying, packaging, selling, and borrowing. Shareholders are getting rich. Everyone's happy. Until in June 2007, two Bear Stearns hedge funds collapsed. At the same time, housing prices began a steep decline, and this hurt Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac because of Fannie Mae's exposure to the housing market, which has now become weak. In fact, Fannie Mae's outstanding guaranteed mortgages tripled from 1998 to 2007, and the same thing happened to Freddie Mac, which made them both vulnerable. At the same time, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's mortgage delinquency rate was rising alarmingly. This meant that they may have to lose capital to make good on the money they borrowed to buy all those mortgages. Now the lenders that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac tapped into for these loans are afraid to continue lending them money. The cost of getting these loans is increasing because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac don't look like a good risk anymore. And so recently, the House passed H.R. 3221, the Foreclosure Prevention Act of 2008, and it was developed to help bolster Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Some say this legislation will help to prevent more damage to the economy. Others, like Ron Paul, call it a bailout.
Yeah, very important vote today on the House floor. It was on the housing bill, and it passed overwhelmingly, 272 to 152. And this was a major piece of legislation, a major bailout. I was kiddingly wanting to call the bill the mother of all bailouts.
Some industry experts say that this legislation and other aggressive initiatives should help the economy, that it should cause an improvement in the economy over the next year. Well, stay tuned.